You've seen them in movies, dressed in black, vanishing in smoke, leaping across rooftops. But what if I told you that the truth behind the ninja is far more terrifying and far more fascinating? Ninja, or shinobi, weren't just assassins in the night. They were spies, saboteurs, and silent warriors trained to move unseen, strike without warning, and disappear without a trace. For centuries, they lived in the shadows of feudal Japan, manipulating the battlefield not through brute force, but through deception, patience, and strategy. They were not born noble. Most were commoners, farmers, monks, outcasts, trained in secret to become masters of unconventional warfare. While samurai followed a strict code of honor, ninja answered to a different kind of discipline, one shaped by survival, secrecy, and the will to win at any cost. Their skills weren't just learned. They were passed down through generations in hidden villages, guarded like sacred treasure. To become a ninja meant sacrificing your name, your face, and sometimes your soul. In this video, we're diving deep into the world of real ninja, their origins, their weapons, their terrifying tactics, and the mystery that still surrounds them even today. This is not the fantasy. This is not Hollywood. This is the shadowed truth of the ninja. Long before the black masks and throwing stars, the ninja were born out of desperation. In feudal Japan, during the chaotic Sengoku period, a time when warlords battled for control and the countryside bled with conflict, power was everything. Samurai ruled the battlefields with honor and steel, serving their masters with loyalty. But not everyone could afford such luxury. The poor, the oppressed, and the outcast had no armor, no title, and no place in the rigid samurai order. But they had one thing: the will to survive. In the remote mountainous regions of Iga and Koga, these desperate people began to develop a new kind of warfare, one that didn't rely on strength, but on stealth. Instead of facing their enemies head-on, they watched from the shadows. Instead of dueling with swords, they used traps, poisons, disguises, and silence. What started as guerrilla survival evolved into a powerful tradition known as ninjutsu, the art of the shadow. Passed from generation to generation, ninjutsu combined espionage, sabotage, infiltration, and assassination into one deadly craft. These early ninja weren't lone wolves. They formed clans, families bound by secrecy and loyalty. The Iga and Koga regions became strongholds of ninja learning, hidden from the eyes of samurai lords. These clans trained not just in weapons, but in psychology, escape tactics, and the ability to become invisible in plain sight. The ninjas' reputation began to grow. Warlords started to notice. Some feared them, others hired them. Ninja became spies, bodyguards, saboteurs, weapons in human form. And yet, even as they gained influence, they remained ghosts. No songs were sung for them. No monuments erected. They didn't crave glory. Their purpose was singular: to complete the mission and disappear. The irony? The most dangerous people in Japan weren't the ones who stood proudly on the battlefield. They were the ones you never saw coming. When you think of a ninja, what's the first image that comes to mind? A throwing star? A silent sword? Maybe a puff of smoke and a vanishing figure? While Hollywood got some of it right, the truth is far more fascinating and deadly. Ninja were not warriors of brute force. They were masters of tools, of tricks, and of psychological warfare. Every item they carried had a purpose, not just to kill, but to confuse, deceive, and terrify. Let's start with their most iconic weapon, the shuriken. Small, star-shaped blades, easy to hide and deadly when thrown with precision. But contrary to popular belief, these were not always used to kill. Sometimes they were poisoned. Sometimes they were thrown to distract, to delay, to make enemies hesitate. Then, there's the ninjato, the supposed straight-blade ninja sword. It was often shorter than a samurai's katana, making it easier to draw in tight spaces. The square guard wasn't just for looks. Ninja used it to climb walls, or as a step when stuck into the ground. Even the scabbard could be used as a breathing tube underwater, or as a tool to hide powder or poison. But ninja warfare extended far beyond blades. They employed smoke bombs, crafted from sulfur, saltpeter, and charcoal, to disorient and disappear in seconds. They used flash powders, blinding powders, even itching agents to irritate enemies long enough to escape or strike. Their arsenal included tools most wouldn't even consider weapons. Makibishi, caltrops scattered on the ground to slow pursuers. Kaganawa, grappling hooks for scaling walls. Ashiko and shuko, claws worn on hands and feet for climbing in close combat. Fukiya, blowpipes to silently shoot poison darts. And let's not forget the psychological tactics. Ninja sometimes wore terrifying masks, used fake footsteps, or left behind signs to make enemies believe they were surrounded. They weaponized fear. If their enemy hesitated even for a second, that was all the time a ninja needed. Ninja were trained to disappear, not magically, but using a deep understanding of nature, terrain, and human perception. They could use shadows, wind direction, animal sounds, even smell, to predict enemy movements and remain hidden. Their skills weren't flashy. They were surgical. They could get in, get out, and leave nothing behind but a trail of silence and confusion. Unlike samurai who sought glory in open battle, ninja found victory in the unseen. Their weapons didn't just cut flesh, they cut through fear, loyalty, and trust. And that's what made them so terrifying. While the samurai fought with honor, the ninja fought with strategy. In the silent world of espionage, there were no cheers, no glory, only shadows and whispers. Ninja were not trained to conquer with brute force. They were trained to infiltrate, observe, gather intelligence, and when needed, to kill, quietly, efficiently, and without a trace. Their greatest victories didn't come from the edge of a sword, but from the silence of information. Ninja were masters of disguise. One day a monk, the next a merchant, the next a wandering performer. Their ability to blend in was legendary. With the right robes, language, and posture, they could walk straight into enemy castles unnoticed. They listened. They watched. They memorized layouts, studied guards, mapped escape routes. The best ninja could spend weeks behind enemy lines without being detected. And when the time came, they struck with precision. Assassinations weren't about blood. They were about timing. A silent blade to the throat while a victim slept. A poisoned tea. A candle rigged to explode when burned. A staircase sabotaged. Ninja didn't just kill, they made it look like an accident, or worse, a curse. The mere rumor of ninja infiltration was sometimes enough to make enemy lords lose sleep, to cause betrayal, panic, or retreat. Some ninja even carried out psychological operations, spreading false information to confuse enemies, leaving behind strange symbols or omens to sow fear, disguising themselves as the enemy's own to commit sabotage from within. Their espionage tactics were centuries ahead of their time. They infiltrated enemy ranks, forged documents, spread rumors, and destroyed morale before a single arrow was fired. Ninja were living shadows, not just assassins, but tools of destabilization, used by cunning daimyo, feudal lords, to outwit their rivals. In many cases, ninja won wars without lifting a sword, simply by making the enemy unravel from the inside. And that, perhaps, is what made them truly terrifying, because the deadliest enemy is the one you never knew was already inside your gates. For centuries, they moved in shadows. They were invisible, untouchable, legends. But what happened to the ninja after Japan was unified? Did they fade into history? Or do they still walk among us, hiding in plain sight? After the chaotic Sengoku era, Japan fell under the iron rule of the Tokugawa shogunate, a time of peace and strict control. With peace, the need for ninja diminished. The warlords who once hired them were gone. The castles they once infiltrated stood quiet, and so began the eradication. The Tokugawa feared the ninja, not for their swords, but for their influence. In a world where the shogunate sought absolute order, ninja represented chaos, secrecy, and rebellion. The great clans of Iga and Koga were hunted, their villages were burned, their scrolls and techniques destroyed or hidden. Those who survived went underground or vanished altogether, but some say they never truly disappeared. Instead, the ninja adapted. No longer hired assassins, they became teachers, monks, hermits, and even bodyguards. They passed on their knowledge in whispers, through family lines, hidden scrolls, and secret rituals. There are stories, strange stories, of men in modern times performing impossible feats, climbing sheer walls, vanishing into crowds, reacting faster than thought. Many dismiss these as folklore, but some are harder to explain. In the 20th century, a man named Jinichi Kawakami claimed to be the last living ninja, trained in secret from the age of 6. He could blend into a forest without a sound, vanish behind a tree, or hold his breath underwater for minutes. He taught ninjutsu not as martial arts, but as a way of life, discipline, awareness, and survival. Then there's Masaki Hatsumi, founder of the Bujinkan school, who inherited teachings said to trace back hundreds of years. He demonstrated ancient techniques and philosophies passed through 9 ninja lineages and trained thousands around the world. So, if ninjas still exist, what are they doing now? They may not be assassinating lords or stealing scrolls, but perhaps they protect powerful leaders from threats. They work in intelligence, surveillance, or covert operations. They live quietly, training the next generation, waiting for the world to need them again. Or maybe they walk past you every day. The quiet man on the train, the stranger who disappears into a crowd, the master who smiles and says nothing. Because the truth is, ninja were never about the weapons, or the outfits, or the stories. They were about perception. And the greatest ninja skill is never being noticed at all. So have they vanished? Or have they just become better at hiding? The ninja were not soldiers. They were not heroes. They were something more, something forgotten, something feared. They rewrote the rules of war. They turned weakness into power, silence into strength, invisibility into an art. And while empires rose and fell, while kings and samurai wrote their names in stone, the ninja carved theirs into shadows. They taught us that the strongest fighter is not the loudest, but the one you never see coming. That true strength is not in domination, but in knowing when to fight and when to vanish. Today, their names may be lost, their villages in ruins, but the legacy of the ninja lives on. In the quiet observer, in the one who listens more than they speak, in the one who prepares, plans, and always stays 10 steps ahead. Maybe the world doesn't need blades in the dark anymore, but it still needs minds in the shadows, because the greatest power is not being seen, but always being ready. This is the legacy of the ninja, silent, enduring, unstoppable.